Right, so the Tories' electoral chances continue to fall, and more it looks like Keir Starmer, despite being no different to them, is going to win a landslide at their expense because people just want to look at someone else, it seems, even if nothing will actually change in their lives. So naturally, the Tories go after the long-term sick and disabled yet again, aided and abetted by the toxic right-wing hack rags, hate rags, chiefly in this instance the Daily Fail, in demonising those who are ill rather than asking why they are ill, why this is happening, and proposing solutions or holding government to account for allowing this failure in the nation's health. Instead, the blame is laid on those who are sick, implying they're just lead swingers and skivers and shirkers, and blaming the state of the economy even on them. The entire economy to blame on people being ill. Well, the Tories will not do a damn thing to actually help people, engaging in a culture war instead to try and win votes through divide and rule tactics. And, well, frankly, Labour are no better on this topic either, are they? Right, so the Daily Fail. If you need to stir the pot and have the national gamonati frothing over their Sunday roasts today, the Fail always to be relied upon to find something for them to blame other than the people actually running the country. Now, I could start this by blaming justifiable causes for the economic flatlining we're experiencing. I say flatlining, that's being generous too, isn't it? It's not even that right now. We're in recession, aren't we? It's worse than that. But I could blame Brexit, I could blame privatisation, I could blame failure to invest, which would generate economic returns. I could blame tax cuts, which restrict government investment. I could blame the rich not getting taxed enough. I could blame the waste on pandemic VIP lanes. I could blame too many vacancies in certain sectors that can't be filled due to a skills shortage. No training opportunities being put forward that people can afford to take up. I could blame prolific spending on failed vanity projects like Rwanda. I could blame arming Israel, which has led to interrupted trade through the Red Sea, having an economic impact. I could go on and on and on. I'm sure you can point to other examples of Tory economic stupidity, where cash has been spent, resulting in no return, stoking inflation and killing off growth, which is itself finite anyway. But no, we can't have the Tories being blamed for all of that. It's a cause for economic calamity. The rich need them in power to keep them rich, after all. So a scapegoat is needed. So the right-wing hack machine grinds into its discriminatory first gear and, well, we're back again to blaming the sick again, by basically claiming they aren't sick at all. The Fail are claiming the country is now gripped by a sick note epidemic, as if doctors are handing these things out like candy for no reason whatsoever. It's the longest sick note epidemic in 25 years, we're told. 2.7 million people claiming they are too sick to work, and that this is a crisis, a too sick to work crisis, having a massive economic impact because the benefit bill is going to spiral to £90.9 billion by the end of the decade. And this sounds terrifying. However, will we afford it? Well, let's tackle this economy accusation first. If that bill spirals that high and that much money is being paid out, what are people going to be doing with that money? I don't know how many of you watching this are living on or have ever lived on benefits before, but if you have, you know it's hardly generous. It has just about covered the essentials in previous years. It doesn't even do that anymore. You only need to look at queues to food banks or homelessness as a result of rent hikes, everybody's bills going up without incomes matching, to know it doesn't do that, and hasn't done that for quite some time. The Fail also fails to point out that in their calculations there are a great many people who will be claiming a share of their benefit bill figures who will actually be in work as well. A huge chunk of that bill actually will be the state pension too, protected by the triple lock. People forget it is treated as a benefit, even if people don't consider it as such because they've paid into it all their lives. But with the triple lock protected, where are the cuts potentially going to come from to keep this bill down, as is always being angled at? No, it'll be the sick ones driving that bill up, of course. It's not the pensioners. Let's single them out, and when the government comes for cuts again, we'll cheer about it, all right? But the benefit supplement offers little more than covering the essentials, and you're not saving any money, are you? You're not stashing it away. You're not funneling it offshore to sit in the bank account forever and a day gathering dust and doing nothing, because you'll be spending it in the economy, on your food, on your rent, on your electric, on your gas, whatever it might be. It'll be coming in and going straight out again, being spent. When you spend, you're making money work. Spending it is what money is for. It's going to go back into the economy. So the fails headlines fall flat from the get-go because all benefit claimants spend their money in the economy, therefore are not taking money out of the economy. They're spending it, which actually always ends up generating a return to government. You go to the shop, you're spending your money. If that shop's doing well, they take on more staff. That creates more jobs. That's more tax return for the government being generated. That's their return. It's an increase on their investment being paying us, giving us money to spend. You can hate on benefit claimants all you like, especially if you read filth like this fail story, but that's just a basic fact. And as such, no matter how many claimants there might be, 2.7 million sick is their figure. The 2021 census said there are 37.5 million people in work, so it's a small chunk of that people relatively, comparatively, and all of them are spending in the economy, helping the economy grow. So if you want to know why the economy is in recession, it's clearly not the sick, the disabled, anyone on benefits actually doing it. They may have been paying taxes when they were working, but they are still actively contributing to the economy even if they aren't. Perhaps it sounds daft, perhaps it sounds counterintuitive, perhaps that's why this narrative repeatedly comes up periodically to stoke a useful culture war for a government on its last legs. But money spent in the economy helps the economy grow whether you're in work or out of it. Now, certainly you can argue that in work people contribute more because they then pay taxes and spend in the economy, helping that growth. But there's no negative quantity is what I'm getting at. There is no economic downturn as a result of the pittance many of these people live on getting spent. For that you have to point to what else the government have done, which has harmed the economy, which the fail is completely dodging with this story. And I outlined a number of causes before, but if this issue is one you want to fix, if you want to get people off the sick and back into work, instead of accusing them of being feckless and lazy, that this is an epidemic of sick notes rather than sickness, they want their readers to deliberately draw the conclusion that there is a correlation between economic stagnation and all these people who are sick and give them someone to blame again instead of the government. And so instead of falling for that, I'm going to ask that people instead engage their brains and to instead look at what exactly is making so many people sick. Ask yourself instead, why is this happening, rather than jump to attribute blame because a paper with an agenda told you to, and you were daft enough to believe what you read. So many people in this country are still living with the ramifications of the pandemic. Long COVID is very much real. It was the Tories' decision to let us get infected. Take it on the chin, as the shambling yeti we called the Prime Minister at the time said. But that didn't work out so well, and so many of us died, and so many more have been left with ongoing health complications. That's one not insignificant cause. Another reason is that not everyone has the same resources that perhaps you do. Perhaps their job doesn't pay enough. Perhaps they have to work 2 or even 3 jobs to make ends meet. What do you think that does to your health? It's unsustainable, as I'm sure you can appreciate. That's not going to help you be well for very long, is it? I mean, to have to do that for any extended length of time. Why should anyone have to work hours that end up wrecking your health? Because that's got to be a failure of society as well, hasn't it? It's not the fault of the person working those hours and getting ill because of it. That's a breakdown of the social contract that one job doesn't pay enough for them to get by on. A fair day's pay for a fair day's work. It doesn't happen anymore. Otherwise you wouldn't have people claiming in-work benefits at all, would you? Poor working hours, poor wages, lack of opportunities within certain sectors. A whole swathe of people working dead-end jobs, essentially, gig economy jobs, working hard and getting nowhere in life, unable to afford to build lives for themselves, kept in insecure circumstances. I'm sure you know exactly where I'm going with this next, I'm sure, because there is a clear, obvious correlation between poor, insecure, underpaid work and worrying about how you're going to get by with no more hours in the day, it seems, to work more. And that is going to take a toll on your mental health. Mental health figures also very much on the rise, and no investment in dealing with it from the government. You know what else adds to that? Being told when they end up having to claim sickness that they are also lazy skivers shirking their responsibility and harming the economy, my red-faced absolute balloons who read shit like the Daily Fail every day. There has been woeful underinvestment in mental health help, woeful investment in health services in the NHS generally, which if invested in would potentially help these people get the help they need faster and hopefully get them back on their feet sooner. That again is a failure of government, who can find money for rubbish PPE, find money for Ukraine, find money for Israel, find money to give themselves pay rises. And it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge the Chancellor Jeremy the Misprint Hunt, going on Sky Today and talking about how a wage of £100,000 a year doesn't go very far, when whether you're in work or not, the vast majority of us don't earn anything near that. And he's charging you more in tax because he hasn't shifted the tax thresholds if you're in work, and he's coming after benefits for cuts if you're not because they're all skivers again. In what way is that helping the nation's health? It is false economy, and Labour's no better, with Rachel tougher than the Tories on benefits Reeves coming in to replace Hunt as Chancellor if Labour get in, and Liz Kendall will then come in at the DWP, who in a recent speech to the think tank Demos accused the Tories of being too soft on the sick and disabled. The Tories too soft. What's Labour going to do then? There's one other thing worth mentioning here, and that is the week the poverty report came out, where 2/3 of children in families where at least one parent works are in poverty now. 3.6 million children all told are in poverty, and nearly 1 in 10 pensioners struggle to be able to afford to eat. That's a whole next generation of people, if you focus on the children there, who will be sick both with mental illness and physical illness because their development right now is being hampered by the lives they lead, the poverty they're living. And their parents too are more susceptible to end up ill. And still we have this carrot and stick attitude being put forward. That is what is truly sick. Instead of blaming more and more people for being sick on laziness, when in fact it is you being lazy, too lazy to question the nonsense printed by the press and the gumph that comes out of politicians' gobs, ask instead why so many people are sick and demand to know why the government, instead of addressing that, is just trying to shift the blame for that bring the economy into the argument as well. And when neither the Tories or Labour are talking or acting any differently from each other on this, why vote for a party that is going to continue to not address it, continue to see these sickness figures worsen as they obviously will, and question what exactly the motivations are of newspapers who keep peddling the dishonesty surrounding all of this? And if you still think Labour must be better, would have to be better, couldn't possibly be worse, then I would urge you to watch this video recommendation next on that speech Liz Kendall gave to Demos, and get the details of Labour's awful position here and how they could well be worse. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.